In this video, we're going to run through the external elements of the caravan, how to set up in the first place if you've actually self-towed from us, but also if we've already set it up for you, how to go about the operation of all these things, because it will be relevant to you, so please keep watching. Most of the equipment that I'm about to show you will be stored in the front locker of the caravan. I've taken it all out at the moment on display here. What you can still see in here are two gas bottles. There'll be one that's part used that will be connected already to the system, and one that's a brand new gas bottle full of gas, and if you need to change it, I'll explain that in a while. The equipment in the front locker will be the ramps and the feet ready for setting up. This will only be applicable to you if you're self-towing. 25 metre long 240 volt electric cable. The wheel lock and the hitch lock with some keys. The Aquaroll handle, but also the Aquaroll and Wastemaster. If you're self-towing, these will actually be in the caravan because they don't fit in the front locker. The stuff ready for your water system. Stuff for the toilet. A spanner ready to change over the gas bottle if needed. And a basic toolkit, just in case you need it on your holiday. If you've booked a pitch with a 240 volt electric supply and we've delivered, we already have done this bit, but if you're self-towing, you'll need to do this yourself. The very first thing to do is make sure that you take the cable off the reel. You should never ever operate the cable when this is still wrapped around the reel, because that will start generating too much heat and will become a fire hazard. The cable itself has got two ends, one without a flap, one with a flap. The one without a flap needs to go into the supply on the campsite. We'll go in over that way. And this one, if I open up the electric box, you can see we've got the battery in here, and this is where this is going to go. Lift the flap, push in there, pull that round. You'll see that the cable will then fit into the hole designed for it. That can then be closed and will become watertight. You should now be connected to electric. First thing to do then is to go inside, just above the habitation door, press the power button on the main screen, and it should all illuminate. Where you've got the lightning on there, you should have an illuminated light in there. If it's not illuminated, you have no electric supply yet running into the caravan. At this point, go and double check that the trip switches are still up on the supply from the caravan site. Double check that first. If that isn't working, then there may not be no electric actually getting to that point, in which case you need to speak to the campsite. Whether you've booked a pitch at your campsite with a 240 volt supply or you're completely off grid, you're still going to need a gas supply. In the front here we have two gas bottles. One is part used, one is completely full. We travel always with the gas turned off for safety reasons. So when you get to site, turn this top knob completely anti-clockwise until it's fully open, and then that should supply the gas into the caravan. To check it, I would go in and turn the hob on, gas hob, try and ignite it, wait for the gas to come through. It should ignite, no problem. If that gas supply runs out, if this bottle becomes empty, which will happen from time to time, then we need to shut it right the way back down so it's completely closed, tight there. We then need to loosen the nut at the front here, which is reverse thread, or left-hand thread, some people would say. Open that completely out, remove that, and we need to move it across to the other gas bottle. To fit the gas lead onto the other new gas bottle, remove the stopper, push that into place, tighten it with your fingers as much as you can in an anti-clockwise direction. So it's there. At that point, get that on there and give it a good tighten. Make sure that's nice and tight on there. Then you can open the top, head back inside and double check on the hob again. The gas should come straight through onto the hob, and once it's got that, it's pulled into the whole caravan and should be completely fine for use with everything. I'm going to skip over the hitch lock and wheel lock operation, because if we've delivered, we'd have already done this for you. And if you're self-towing, you would have had a separate video on hitching and unhitching, and it will already be explained there for you. To get water into the caravan for your hot and cold water supply, we need to get this into operation, which is the Aquaroll. The Aquaroll is connected into the side of the caravan via the filter, which sits down into the bottom there, and the pump inside the caravan will then draw the water up and fill the system up. To get water into the Aquaroll, we need to take it to the nearest standpipe on the site. So if you tip it on its side, use the Aquaroll handle, both ends, take the filler tube, let's head off to the standpipe. When you get to the standpipe, you need to get the water into the Aquaroll. We use the filler tube, pop that over the tap itself, open that up, put that down in there, and then fill it to capacity. Once you've got the Aquaroll back, which is now full of water, it's going to be quite heavy. Take off the handle, lift the Aquaroll up, open her up, pop the filter back down inside, push it right down to the very bottom to make sure that when the pump pulls, it's pulling water, not air, because if it's at the top, it will just pull air. It won't fill your system up, the pump will continually run, and you'll end up with spluttering air and water mixed into your taps. This, depending on how much you actually use water-wise, this will probably need to be done every day. So do make it part of your daily routine, probably in the morning. The freshwater system on a caravan works that you put this fresh water into the Aquaroll, which you've just seen, goes into the caravan, will be pumped round and come out through the kitchen sink, the basin or the shower, and then come down through this pipe down into the waste master, where it becomes grey waste. Fresh water that side, grey water this side. Whenever that is empty and you need to refill it, you'll need to empty this, because this will be full. To empty it, you can lift it up, it's on wheels, you roll it across to wherever your campsite wants you to put the grey waste. When you get there, you undo, tip it down there. It's quite often a soak away, but each caravan site will have a specific place. It almost certainly won't be the same place that you put the chemical waste from your toilet, which is an entirely separate entity. Once it's empty, come back over, reset it here, once again, that's ready to take another load from the Aquaroll of fresh water into keep it as grey waste. If you've been fortunate enough to book a fully serviced pitch, which is where you've got your own electric supply, your own water supply, and your own soakaway on the pitch itself, then we'll supply slightly different equipment. We'll supply one of these pipes that goes into the same place, which will allow you to completely bypass the Aquaroll. This has got a water pressure valve on it, which stops too much pressure going into the side of the caravan. And this is then run round, and this part at the other end goes directly into the water tap. So you've got a constant water supply straight in, and no need to go and fetch any more water. Likewise, if you come down the other end, the waste master can be completely bypassed as well, because we will supply one of these much longer pipes that will reach down, and the waste, then the grey waste, then go completely straight down into the soakaway itself, and no need to take away the wastewater and dispose of that as well. We've now come to the rear of the caravan to look at how the toilet and the cassette works. As mentioned before, this is an entirely separate system than the fresh water at the front half of the caravan, or even the grey waste, entirely separate. If you've had the opportunity to watch the handover video for the internal parts of the caravan, you'd have already seen how the toilet works on the inside, including the flush, that when you press the flush, a slightly pink fluid comes out and a deodorizer, which then comes down, encouraging everything down into the toilet cassette. When that runs out and you press the button and nothing comes out, and you hear the engine, the motor trying to whir, but nothing's coming through, then you need to top it back up, it's empty. To do that, you need to open that. We lock it for transportation purposes so that it doesn't flap open. We then get the pink fluid, which we have kept in the front locker of the caravan. A good glug of pink in there, which is the deodorizer part. And then top it up with the watering can, which again is kept in the front locker, and you can get the water exactly the same place as you got the water for the Aquaroll over at the standpipe. Get that up almost to the top so you can see the level there, but make sure it doesn't overflow so it doesn't run down the side of the caravan, which will probably stain. And then we put that back. The flush is then ready to operate inside. On the inside of the caravan, when you empty the contents of the toilet through the flap, it goes immediately below the toilet, directly into the toilet cassette. And that toilet cassette is situated right there. Before the toilet cassette becomes completely full, you must make sure that you empty it. To get the toilet cassette out is quite a simple move. Simply lift that handle, pull it out there. Now, if you find a resistance at this point, before you get it out and it doesn't want to go, don't force it. It's a plastic mechanism. What you would have done is a simple mistake, where you've left the toilet flap open inside, and of course it won't then pull out. Go back inside the caravan, the handle at the bottom part of the toilet, move it back across, shut the lid, so that flap closes, and this will slide out nice and easily. When we pull this back, you can see the flap which sits at the bottom of the toilet. If I open that up, I can now see directly into the toilet. When you're inside looking down into the toilet, that's the view you'll have. So you can see how high the contents are coming. If that gets anywhere near the top, you must empty it. If you don't and it overflows, there are receptacles inside here that would just fill up, and then you have to go through and muck it all back out with toilet paper. It will come to you clean, and it's your responsibility to bring it back clean. So it's an avoidable thing, and make sure that you just do everything you can to avoid that. You might need to empty it every day. Sometimes it's 3 or 4 days. As long as you monitor it and it doesn't overflow, job's a good one. We've now got to get this across to the Elson Point, or the chemical waste facility. To do that, make sure the flap is closed. You slide that across there, which will cover any spillages. It's on wheels, so we can wheel it across, because it will be quite heavy because it's full. Head across to the Elson. When you get there, push the handle back down out the way. Open that up, take that out, put it to the side. Slide that off, put it to the side. Those are the 2 bits that could fall in, and you really don't want to be putting your hands down inside there to get them back out again. Now we can lift this up. It's typically a great big bowl or toilet that will be there for this Elson Point. So we need to then lift it up, point it that way, press the vacuum button here, and that will fire out. Be careful to aim, because it will come out pretty well. You could look in, and what you then need to do by the side of it, almost certainly, almost every Elson Point I've seen has got a hose pipe with some water. Turn the water on, swill it right the way around. Try to get rid of everything in it. Tip it back out twice. Swill it all the way around. You're hopefully getting this toilet as clean as it possibly can be, and get rid of everything there. You've now got a clean toilet. Close the flap. Slide this back on. It comes from the inside. That's important for when you push it back in a moment. Put that back on. And because it's empty now, you'll probably just be able to walk across back over to the caravan with it. We've now got a clean toilet cassette, and we've come back over to the caravan. We've got to fit it back in. Before we do that, we do 2 things. Firstly, we get the blue chemical. We put about a small glug in, like that. Same watering can, and we top that up to about 1 inch of water down at the bottom. The reason we do that is that anything that goes in, number 1s, number 2s, or toilet paper, that blue chemical not only acts as a deodorizer, but it also starts to break all the material down. So we've then got everything that goes into it, goes under the water, starts getting broken down immediately. Close the flap, slide this back on there. Make sure that you've got 2 arrows that line up here on this side. You see the 2 arrows. If you put it in the other way from the front and you try and slide it in, it won't go in. Because what happens when you actually slide that in, this slides back over to expose the flap for the toilet. Pop that in there, lift it up, slide it in. As soon as that fits in there, she's sat under the toilet ready to go. We've discussed about how to use the pink chemical for the flush and the blue chemical for the toilet cassette, which is fine in most circumstances. But if you happen to be going to a place that's going to empty into either a cesspit or a compostable toilet, we're more than happy to supply organic toilet flush, which actually will be perfectly acceptable in both those scenarios. Final thing to mention would be that at the end of your hire, when you've actually finished and you've washed out the toilet cassette completely, please don't refill it. Don't put any more chemicals in there or in the flush. Leave them empty, leave them clean, which is much better for us for transport. Hopefully now all the external workings of the caravan are quite clear to you, but if you do have any kind of problems, you can either refer to the different videos on our website, or of course we're open 8 till 6 every day. Please feel free to contact us. We'll be more than happy to try and talk you through it.